Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bronze, Silver, Gold Proving Grounds guide for Resto Druids. I did this with an approximate eye level of 617, and my glyphs were Glyph of Rejuvenation for the Healing Touch cooldown, Nature's Cure for the double Nature's Cure, and Rebirth, which is completely irrelevant in Proving Grounds, but I couldn't really think of a better alternative. And the one minor glyph that you really would need to use, or would be optimal to use for any situation with Resto Druid really, is Sprouting Mushroom. My talents were Feline Swiftness, which is pretty self-explanatory, Ysera's Gift because it's still ridiculously overpowered, Typhoon, which you can use for interrupts but I didn't in gold, Tree of Life, which is a good cooldown, Mighty Bash, Nature's Vigil, and Germination. Nature's Vigil and Germination are probably the two most important, maybe Tree of Life aside, for the Proving Grounds here, because they're, well, good. Nature's Vigil has a really short cooldown, and Germination is just all around really handy. So, as with all Proving Grounds, you start with all the buffs. As a healer, or in the healing one, you cannot use the health stones provided for you. You can, however, food buff and flask. I just used a Draenor Intellect flask. So, Wave 1 is pretty self-explanatory. You want to keep your Life Bloom up on the tank, keep Rejuve up on the tank, and Regrowth whenever you have a clear casting proc. You want to try and keep your Sprouting or Wild Mushroom in the melee range, and try and stand in it yourself. Wave 2 begins with an Aqualight and a Hive Singer. The Hive Singer is the reason we have taken Mighty Bash, because as a Resto Druid you do not have a reliable interrupt. The Aqualight, as it always has done, casts a debuff on you. You want to run out. If it is on you, don't bother dispelling it unless you are really low on health. But you want to run out, pop Bark Skin, and let it fall off of you as long as you are not within range, and then hop back in and heal yourself up. There isn't really much else to note here. My heal bot did not show me the debuff for whatever reason, so it did blow up twice. Don't let that happen, it's bad. But it is recoverable, as you can see. It's not the end of the world, but it's also not the best way to play. So, Wave 3 here. You're going to want to hit Nature's Vigil to combat the Tunneler, the bleed that he puts on people. Also, I had a messy beginning, so I like to use it there. You're going to want to try and stun that Hive Singer whenever you can. Try and do it after the counterspell and the kick from the Rogue and the Mage. Otherwise, it's just a matter of trying to keep everybody up from that Hive Singer's AoE. As you can see with Nature's Vigil, it is pretty easy, and that does only have a minute cooldown, so you can use that pretty often throughout the Proving Grounds. Wave 4 also has a Tunneler. And a Flamecaller. The Flamecaller really isn't that scary. He does hit pretty hard with his normal cast, but there isn't really much you can do about that. But as I wanted to keep my Nature's Vigil, my Bark Skin, sorry, Iron Bark, I basically just used the double Rejuvenation provided from Germination to combat the damage that was going out here from the Tunneler. The Ripper is really inconsequential, they don't hit that hard, but if you find your stun up and feel like you want to use it, of course, by all means, use it. But I found it better to err on the side of caution, because I did not memorize the waves and I didn't bother writing them down, and so I just saved my stun. But you can use it once per wave, as they are each about a minute long, and they don't time over like the DPS ones do, they don't end. So, Wave 5 is another Nature's Vigil one, especially because of the Tunneler. You have a large Aqualight, so he's going to be casting a couple debuffs pretty quickly, and then, there's another spawn that comes in, so you've got a Hive Singer, a Flamecaller, and the large Aqualight out at this point. So Nature's Vigil is a good one to pop here, combat all that AoE damage, and get people up from the bleed from the Tunneler. So, again, run out, let it drop off you, the debuff from the Aqualight, and just keep trying to heal. Stun the Hive Singer if you can. Thankfully the DPS do switch to try and take that down. The debuff is much less scary than the AoE from the Hive Singer, so much easier to deal with anyway. So then you've got Wave 6, which is the part where I save Tranquility. As it has a 3-minute cooldown, I was able to keep it up for the last fight, but for the last wave. But to begin with, just place your mushroom underneath. When the Conqueror does enrage, he does hit like a truck. This one is only a little one, which isn't that scary, but it is still scary enough to pop a cooldown in my opinion. Also, as I was getting pretty low on mana at this point, from the earlier wave's mistakes, I felt it necessary to use Trank. But as I said, the other thing is, if you do find like you don't want to use Regrowth, you can always cast Healing Touch, as it doesn't cost as much as it used to, and it does hit pretty hard for a heal. It is still slow. I think mine's at 2.1 seconds with the glyph up, but better than nothing. Wave 7 was another Singer, so you're going to want to stun that as usual once the interrupts have gone out, and the small illusionary Conqueror. For this Conqueror, it's pretty much fine to just use Iron Bark once he enrages on the tank, once you feel it is necessary, especially with that Hive Singer out, because again, he's AoEing and the enrage is pretty hard. You cannot soothe it either from the Conqueror. It's not able to be dispelled, to my knowledge. At least, definitely not as a Resto Druid, which is what this guide is for. But once he hasn't enraged, once he's done with that, he won't cast it again, and he's really, really easy to deal with. And you'll have a little bit of time at the end of Wave 7 if everything goes to plan, to kind of just sit back and relax. I chose to use my clear casting proc here because it wasn't going to carry on to the next wave, and I thought it better to start the wave with the dot than to not have it. So you have another small illusionary Conqueror here. As Iron Bark has a couple seconds more cooldown, I chose to stun the Conqueror, let it come off cooldown, and then he will enrage very shortly after, but Iron Bark is off cooldown. So you are able to cast that on your tank, take care of him, heal everyone else up from the cast procs from the caster, and just kind of business as usual, heal away. And there's another little bit of a break at the end of this wave between 8 and 9, so you have a little bit more time to kind of kick back and prepare for the two most horrible waves of the healing fight. I've found that the healing proving grounds are much more challenging than the DPS proving grounds. Even though I did this with a higher eye level, they do scale, as I believe I mentioned in my Hunter video, but I'm not sure why there's such a difficulty difference. Maybe I'm just bad at Resto Druids. That's always a possibility. So, Wave 9, again, you're going to just want to stun that Conqueror to give some time for Iron Bark to come off cooldown. The DPS will take care of that small flame caller pretty quickly, and you're free to kind of just hang out and heal up your tank. A second set of adds do spawn here, so you'll have a Hive Singer, you'll have the Aqualight, and your Conqueror, but he will be done enraging, which is very kind of him. Do not use your cooldowns here if you can help it. It is pretty heavy AoE damage if you're not on top of it all, but as a Resto Druid that is fairly easy to combat, especially with your double rejuves. I'm not sure if there's actually a way to get Healbot to track Germination. If there is, I haven't found it yet, but just remember to double rejuve your party members and use those clear casting procs on whoever needs them. It doesn't necessarily have to be the tank. And this wave is over fairly easily, without cooldowns, I suppose, as long as you're careful. You know, don't go crazy and waste all your mana either. As you can see, I finished this wave with about 36% mana, which is okay for me. So, Wave 10. There is another Conqueror, a large one this time. Do not use your stun on him. The Iron Bark is sufficient once he has enraged, once again. And then there will be a second set of ads that spawn in the middle of this wave, which is where it's going to start getting pretty messy. So you've got the Aqualite, you've got the Flamecaller. So keep an eye on those debuffs. It is only a small Aqualite, thankfully, and therefore not that hard. But that Flamecaller can be a bit of a pain, but thankfully the DPS should bring it down pretty quickly. But then there's a third wave with another Conqueror who will enrage and a Hive Singer. Save your stun for that Hive Singer. I pop Nature's Vigil here to start combating everything because there is no more Iron Bark. It's still on cooldown. You're going to need something. So Nature's Vigil was my weapon of choice, or my cooldown of choice for this point, and then as I was really low on mana, I chose to Trank just to bring everybody else up, because otherwise it was going to start getting messy. Then you're left with this small Conqueror who, as I just previously mentioned, has already enraged. It's just a matter of them burning him down. Don't stress if your timer has come to an end before they've killed him, because you'll still get your achievement. So congratulations, I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.